Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to Do Station with another video. I hope you are good, you are doing good, you are healthy, you are enjoying life, you are learning. Our series is basically we are covering our series on HSE fundamental concepts of HSE, in which we are understanding the important terminologies of HSE. This is the next video of the same series. So we are going to cover new terminologies of what is permit, PTW system or permit to work system, and then what is LOTO lockout tagout procedure. We use what is this, and then we will understand what are the confined spaces and what is confined space entry stands for. Then we will understand today what is the competent person, and then what is HSE compliance or compliance stands for or mean by. So these are few new terminologies we will understand, very important one. So thank you for your feedback, and also if you have any questions, concern, feedback, please share with me. So let's go and start our today's topic. Welcome to presentation, everyone. It is our series going on the fundamental concepts on HSE, in which we are understanding the key terminologies in HSE. So this is ninth part. Introduction. Let's look into. We know that the terminologies we are understanding are very crucial. One, it is very important to have a good and solid understanding of these concepts, so we can effectively play our role in implementing and performing well in our organization regarding the HSE. So let's look which new terminologies we are going to understand today. So today's terminologies that I have grouped are very important and crucial one in occupational health, safety and environment. These are basically the procedural controls or critical procedures, of important procedures that we develop and implement to ensure that our dangerous or hazardous activities are conducted in safe manner. Because in this section we are just taking under getting the general understanding. So we will discuss them briefly here. In the later section of this course, in the later modules, we will understand them thoroughly. So today's terminologies are permit to work system. What are they? Then lockout, tag out a procedure, another procedure that we will understand. What is confined space and what is the confined space entry? Then competent person, what are the competent person? What is meant by competent person? And then we will understand what is HSE compliance, the term we use, what is the importance of this term. So let's start it. Okay, so now let's first understand what are the PTW system. So basically, simply saying PTW system or PT permit to work system are basically permissions to perform the critical activities in safely controlled manner. So let's understand them. So first of all, we need to understand these are basically legal obligations. So we are bound to develop a procedure for all the critical activities which are hazardous to ensure that we can execute or conduct them in safe manner. Secondly, these are called the administrative control or procedural control. So that help us to ensure our activities are conducted safely. So now let's define them. So basically, the permit is a formal, structured, and approved document that basically which is a procedure that must be followed to ensure that all the safety or precautions or control measures are in place effectively, so that the activity we are going to conduct is conducted in safe manner, or the work environment in which we are doing the activity is safe to execute the activity, to ensure health safety of our workplace, our workers, environment and our business. So such system is called basically PTW system. Now let's look at their types of classification. So basically, it is different from very organization to organization. Basically, the same thing. Someone is calling A, someone is calling B, and someone is calling C. So you don't need to confuse if the same thing you observe that or you feel that it is the same thing, but have we are calling it A or they are calling it B. So you don't need to confuse it. So I will make it clear now. So let's first classification. Basically, some organizations classify the or give the types to the permits on the basis of their risk level of the activity. So they call the high risk PTW. So basically, high risk PTWs are the PTWs that cover those activities which are very critical, like lifting, heavy lifting, critical lifting, hazardous substances, confined space, dangerous confined space entries, extremely dangerous hot works like where flammable or the other explosive conditions or environments are included. Then they can call the medium risk PTWs. Basically, the medium risk PTWs are for those categories which are usually standard or the routine application or activities like hot works, normal hot works, cutting, grinding, etc., where the explosive or flammables are not involved. Then low voltage system, electrical low voltage system. So these works are come under the medium category. So we can call them the medium risk PTWs. Then there is the low risk PTWs, which are where the activity risk is very low, like cleaning, housekeeping, or simple manual handling. So for those such activities, we can call the permits are low risk PTW. So then there is a standardized classification type. We can call them standard permit. The standard permit now basically the same permit which was a medium risk in the previous category. These are the standard activities, generally normal hot works, low electrical voltage system. So for such activities, are we the permit we take, we can call them standard permit. Then high risk permits, basically the same. If the activities are very critical, critical lifting, confined spaces, extremely dangerous hot work. So these the permit for such activities are called uh, high risk permit. Then there we can categorize them as emergency permits. Basically, emergency permits are those permits which are required for the activities, special activities during the our emergency response plans. Like some maybe there is a situation, there is an area which is restricted and no one can access it, but during the emergency maybe we have to access that. So permits, we issue the permits for such things which are required in situation of emergency. Then routine permits also low risk activities like cleaning, housekeeping, etc., simple manual handling. So for such activities, permit we issue, we can call them routine permits. So then there is another classification method which is more famous, in which we categorize the permit based on the characteristics of the activity or hazardous nature of the activity. Like we call them hot work permits, cold work permits, work at height permit, then lifting permit, shuttering permit, deep shuttering permit. So basically, what is it? So in this scenario, basically, we are giving the title of the permit as per the nature of the activity. The hot work permits are basically any permit that is issued for any activity where there is a naked flames are involved, sparks are involved, or there are sources of ignition are involved. So for any such activity, we issue the permit. We call it hot work permits. Then cold work permits, our normal routine standard activities of the organization, like steel fixing, carpentry works, normal work. So for these activities, we give them the uh, cold work permit. Then there are some activities which are very critical, like we issue the high risk permits for those, like heavy lifting, critical lifting, and then confined space entries. So for those, we issue the permit then and name it on the as the name of the activity. Like if we are going to the confined space, then we title the permit like confined space permit. If we are going to perform work at height, which is very dangerous at high heights, so then we call it work at height permit. Of critical lifting, we call it lifting permit. Radiations, we call them radiations permit, etc. So this is how usually we are classifying the permit to work system. So there is another procedural control, lockout tagout. Let's understand it. The lockout tagout is a safety procedure used to ensure that equipment or machinery or the potential energy source is properly shut off and cannot be accidentally restarted until our activity, maintenance, repair, or any activity is completed safely. So like PTW, the scope of the PTW is the whole activity. The lockout tagout is a special procedural control that focuses only the potential energy sources. So maybe during our activity, there is a potential, there is or there may be a potential energy source that can be very dangerous for us. So to ensure that it is effectively secured and during the activity, it will not be triggered or activated accidentally. So to ensure that we apply the LOTO procedure. So basically, in this procedure, we focus on the energy source and then first we lock it out and then we tag it out so everyone knows that what is happening, what is going on, who logged it, and why logged it, and until when it will be logged, things like that. So logged and tagged. Then how it works? Let's look at it. First of all, we identify the potential energy source, then we shut it off. After that, we isolate it or disconnect it from the system, then we lock it. Once we lock it, then we conduct a test run to ensure that zero energy state is achieved. Then, if the test is successful, after that, we put the tag on it and we put the information on the tag for information to others. So, Let's take a understand with example. So let's say we have to do some maintenance work on the electrical system. So what will first of all, we now know that electrical energy is our potential source of energy. So first of all, we will shut it off. Then we will isolate, we will tip the breakers, or we will cut off the supply. We will disconnect it from the system, and then we will lock it so it cannot be reconnected. So then we will conduct a test run. If the test run is successful, so after that we will put the tag on it with the information. So this way we apply the load. So which energy sources we can control with it? So they may be electrical, mechanical, hydraulic, pneumatic, thermal, chemical, radiation sources, kinetic energy, potential energies. So all these energy sources which can be potential hazard for us, we can control them effectively using the Lotto procedure. So let's define the confined space now. So as per OSHA, the confined space is an enclosed or partially enclosed space that is large enough and so configured that an employee can bodily enter and perform assigned work, has limited restricted means for entry or exit, is not designed for continuous employee. So any space at the work site where you have to work, which has limited access or egress, usually one, and there is sufficient space inside that you can perform the work, but you cannot stay there permanently or you cannot occupy it continuously. So that such a space is called confined space. Examples include tanks, vessels, big pipes, pipelines, manholes, weir system, silos. So any such spaces which are meeting these three conditions are called confined spaces. Okay, so now let's look into the categories of confined spaces. Generally, there are two categories: permit required confined spaces and non-permit required confined spaces. So basically, there are four factors that decides if any one of them is there in a confined space, then that is called permit required confined spaces. Number one, a serious health hazard or immediately dangerous to life and health. So any confined space where there is a toxic material, toxic atmosphere that is present or may be present during the activity, or flammable explosive atmosphere, or any other hazardous chemicals that can endanger our life, or deficiency of the oxygen. So such confined spaces are called uh, permit required confined spaces. Then there comes another hazard. If there is an engulfment hazard, like there is some material like sand, grains that can engulf someone or bury under someone, or maybe flooding even. There is a chances of flood and people can drown. So any such confined space is also called the permit required confined spaces. If there are characteristic or properties in the confined space where people can entrap inside, like narrow spaces or winding spaces, so such confined spaces are also called the permit required. Then the fourth factor, which is the safety factor, basically, where if there is a serious safety threat like electrical hazard, mechanical hazard, crushing, falling objects, or explosion hazard that can explode the area. So these confined spaces are also called permit required confined spaces. Now discuss the non-permit confined spaces. So if none of the above factors are there, so such confined spaces can be categorized as a non-permit confined spaces. Usually these are basically there is no such serious hazard, like the ceiling, above the ceiling where you have the some ventilation pipes or some utility connections, you want to go and maintain or look after them. Similarly, basements of the house where there is some similar connections, utilities, you go there and you want to correct them or maintain them. So such confined spaces are called non-permit required confined spaces. So next topic is basically what is the term mean confined space entry mean. So now we know the confined spaces, the team that is going into the confined spaces to perform the activity after all the precautionary measures have been taken. So this process is called confined space entry. So examples like the tank inspections, you go inside the tank for the inspections, then pipe maintenance, big pipes, you are going to maintain them, vessel repairs, manholes. So any confined space where you are going to perform the activity after the precautions have been taken. So this process of going inside after the safety precautions have been implemented is called confined space entry. So now let's understand what is a competent person. So individual having thorough training, experience, knowledge, skills relevant to the job or activity is called basically the competent person. So basically there are four factors that decides the competency level of an individual. Number one, the knowledge. If a person should have appropriate sufficient knowledge about the job or activity. Then there is a ability to perform the activity, physical and mental both. Then there is a training, sufficient training relevant to the job or task he is going to perform. And then obviously the experience, as the experience, and the more you have the experience, the more competent you get, because you know, get familiar with the conditions or situations that can be hazardous, and the control measures or precautions, how to avoid them. So this is the fourth factor. Then the risk perception is basically, it is the natural ability or quality of the every human, which is obviously different for each human. Basically, this is a process of interpreting the information you observe using your senses like sight, smell, touch, taste, and sound. And then this information, brain processes it and then evaluate the potential risk level at the environment you are present. Then gives you the assessment of so the risk perception is basically the ability of any person to interpret the information obtained from his senses, sight, sound, smell, touch, taste, and then his brain processes it and evaluate the potential risk around present in the circumstances, and then estimate the probable consequences. So a person can decide whether it is a dangerous there, something is dangerous there or not. So this ability is called risk perception. It varies person to person. Then how it works basically. So first of all, awareness in the risk perception. Awareness is the first factor that that a person improves with the experience. As you get more and more experience, you get more familiarized with the job, with the hazardous activities, or the conditions or circumstances that can be troubling. So with the passage of time, you have better awareness of them. Then the process of the assessment, the brain. This is the ability of the brain to interpret the information and then give you the evaluation of the potential risk, and then let you know or decide the potential consequences. What may be the consequences under any environment you are working. So this is called the risk perception. So any person who have all these qualities is called competent person. So now let's understand what is HSE compliance. So compliance is adherence to the laws, regulations, standards, and company policies related to health, safety, and environment. Basically, what is this? This is by basically the fulfillment of all the obligations that a business owes. So this fulfillment is called basically compliance. It may be towards the regulations, which are basically local laws, national laws, or society norms of the society you are working in. Then there are standards which are international frameworks. We follow them maybe because of the client or customers or good reputation. Then it is mandatory for us, or it is our obligation to fulfill all the requirements they have mentioned. Then the organizational policies, which can be internal rules, guidelines, procedures, method statement. So by complying them or following them is called the HSE compliance. Why we comply them? Because it is the legal requirement, standard requirement, client requirement, etc. Then if we comply, obviously our HSE will improve. Then our accident incident rates will be decreased. Then we will also our culture will be better if we comply. We focus on the health and safety. Worker will be more happier. Then obviously different kind of costs that come across due to the incidents or ill health cases, we will cover. We will avoid them. Then also, if we are continuously focusing on our HSE, then with the passage of time, our system will be more efficient, more effective. So we will improve continually. Continuity. Okay, now we cover our topics. Let's conclude. So permit, basically we understand that we understood today that are the written permissions to perform the critical activities in a safe manner. Lockout tagout system, procedural control to ensure that any potential energy source is secured effectively to ensure our safety. Then confined spaces, the spaces where there is a limited access, egress, and sufficient space for the performing the activity, and we cannot occupy it continuously. Then the competent person, one who has the appropriate knowledge, ability, training, and experience along with the risk perception. Then the HSE compliance, adherence to the laws, local, national, or international related to the HSE. This is called basically compliance. So that was it for today. I hope that will be beneficial for you. Thank you very much for your watching and your support. So until next video, stay safe and healthy. Goodbye. Until then, goodbye. Take care.